Welcome to Life and Leadership Podcast with David Gadberry. I'm so excited that you've joined me today, and I've got a great thing to talk to you about. As you know, healthy leadership is very important to us here at Gadberry Leadership Coaching, and we're so excited that you're a part of this podcast. Life and Leadership is all about looking at leadership through the perspective of real life. Leadership doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's not sterile. It's incredibly messy. There's a lot of moving parts, and we want to talk about it in a real way. Today, we're going to talk about healthy leaders develop healthy leaders. Healthy leadership is so important. As we've talked about so many times before, so much of the time we look at leaders and leadership based on what appears to be success. We look at all the trappings of success around someone and we say, wow, they're successful. But successful, as it appears, is not always healthy. And what ultimately ends up happening is burnout, maybe some kind of lack of integrity, the collapse of a business, overreaching, taking uncalculated risk, and putting everybody on the line and losing for everybody, just different kinds of things that happen as a result of a person being unhealthy. And unhealthy could mean a lot of different things. Unhealthy could mean being a workaholic. Unhealthy could mean having a lack of honesty. Unhealthy could mean putting the bottom line before everything else, not focusing or founding your organization on values and principles, but rather money, putting money on the throne of whatever kingdom you think you're trying to build, ultimately will cause massive destruction and hurt a lot of people, including yourself. Healthy leadership is all about keeping things in perspective. Now, I hear people say a lot of times work-life balance. And, if you're going to be an effective entrepreneur, effective ministry leader, an effective leader of just about any kind, the truth is people from the outside may look at your life and say, wow, they have no balance. I think that sometimes it looks like that when you're a leader, but the truth is you know where the balance is, and your family should know where the balance is. You should never neglect your family for whatever leadership you're doing. You should bring your family along. You should never just allow yourself to be consumed with frustration. You shouldn't find yourself cutting corners and having lack of integrity or whatever the case may be that would cause destruction to yourself and to those around you. Healthy people are people who look at the whole of their life and they get it in order. So healthy financially, healthy physically, healthy spiritually, healthy relationally, in all of these ways. Because the truth is, and we all know it, we all know it's true, and it's very important for us to acknowledge it and try to walk it out. But the truth is, you can be healthy in 2 or 3 places, but then be unhealthy in a few places, and it totally mess your life up. And you find yourself not being able to get over certain things and not being able to get unstuck in certain areas simply because we sometimes refuse to have the discipline. I heard a quote just the other day that I truly loved, and that was, it's often not the most talented you see at the finish line. It's the most disciplined you see at the finish line. So healthy people are people who are disciplined people. When you interview or talk to or read books of great leaders, what you find is they all have a very disciplined way of living. Most every single one of them. It's shocking almost how similar that is. And the things that they're disciplined about are things that a lot of us would consider to be mundane and boring and routine. And we act as if like that stuff is bad. But the truth is, when we have those kind of foundational characteristics in our life and we habitually do the things that are healthy for us to do, what it does is it compounds over time. And that in and of itself creates health, creates success, creates significance, and it makes a good life, not just for us, but for those around us. And here's something else it does that's really important. It helps us when things do get hard and things are difficult. It helps us to be able to walk through that with more confidence, with more security, with more wisdom and ability, because we're not trying to gather up all the places in our life that are unhealthy at the same time we're trying to fix an external problem. So that's just kind of something that I wanted to communicate as we talk about healthy leaders develop healthy leaders. Now, one of the things that I see that leaders that are unhealthy do on a frequent basis, and unfortunately this is a lot of leaders, and that is they have no kind of system or even format in their life for developing healthy leaders. Because here's the truth. If you want to see a person who understands leadership, look at someone who's not just cultivating followers. When you look at a leader who's just cultivating followers, what you're actually seeing is someone who doesn't understand leadership above maybe a positional level. Because we're not just here cultivating people to follow us. Because when that's all we're doing, what ultimately we're doing is saying we are the center, and everybody, put us at the center of your life, and what we want and what we desire and what we're trying to achieve is most important. And all of you are here just to help support and serve that. That is so far from what leadership really is. And so I want to encourage you that if you really understand leadership, then you understand we're not building followers, we're developing leaders. If you want to see a true leader, then look at the people around them. They are constantly on track, developing them to be leaders. I don't have anybody on any of my staff or anybody that I'm working with around me that I'm developing as a person or discipling as a Christian or helping to grow that I don't see as a leader and I don't treat as a leader. I don't need a lot of sycophantic followers. I don't need people walking around telling me how great I am. I don't need that, and I don't want it because it's not healthy for me and it's not healthy for them. What I want is to be able to deposit such strong insight and wisdom and encouragement and leadership into people's lives that they develop leadership in and of themselves. And if they choose to partner with me and go with me to the things we're trying to accomplish, then praise God and awesome, because they're leaders and they're not just followers, and they're going to help me achieve those things. And I'm adding value to them. They're adding value to me. It's a great experience. But if all I'm doing is just trying to gather people to follow me so that I can say, wow, look what I've done. And I know that's not what most people's hearts are, but we inadvertently do that when all we're doing is gathering people to follow. So you're not really being a healthy leader on many levels. You're not being an effective leader if all you're doing is developing followers. We need to be developing leaders. We need to be developing people who can carry the legacy of what it is we are created to do on into the future. We need to be developing leaders to help us expand and grow. Followers can support, but leaders can help expansion and growth. Every week, and I'm going to get around to in just a moment talking about how to develop healthy leaders, because here's the deal. We don't want to just develop leaders. We want to develop healthy leaders. But just to give you an example, most every week, with the exception of emergencies happening or having to deal with things that we didn't know were coming or whatever the case may be, every week we have a staff meeting. And every single staff meeting, almost everyone without fail, I do some kind of leadership teaching or training or development. Either that or I'll send a talk from somebody else, maybe a Simon Sinek or a John Maxwell or a Craig Rochelle or an Andy Stanley or any kind of great leader that I follow, I might send a blog or a podcast or a video of them teaching some kind of leadership. Because here's the thing, and that's every week. That's every week. And some people say, man, don't you need to get stuff done? Yes, we do a logistic part of the meeting. And that makes that meeting kind of long. But the bottom line is, I want my people developing as leaders. I also encourage them to read certain books. I also encourage them to read and develop leadership in and of themselves, not always depending on me to do it. But as a leader, if leadership is important to me and I'm trying to develop them so that we can grow and expand and develop other leaders and continue to do what it is we feel like we're created to do, then I have to place a mandate on that. I have to make that valuable. If I don't consistently do that, then what I'm saying to them is it's not really as important as I say it is. So that is one way that I do that. Now, we don't just want to develop leaders. We want to develop healthy leaders. And so how do we develop healthy leaders? Well, I think the first is, you'll hear me say a lot, I think the first thing is the way you develop healthy leaders, number one, is you be a healthy leader yourself. You heard me quote Brian Houston on this, but you can't create culture, you can only be culture. So if you want the structure of your organization, the culture of it, the norms of it, this is the way we do things part of your organization to be leadership, then you have to operate, function, be that way. And if you want it to be healthy, then you need to be a healthy leader. So you can't be partially healthy. You can't be just talk about health, but you've got to be a healthy leader. Because mostly what the people who are following your lead, the leaders that are following your lead, are going to pick up more of what they see in your life than they are of what you say from your mouth. So it's important for you not to just talk healthy leadership. It's important for you not to just call them out when you see unhealthy things happen in their life. But it's important that when they look at your life, they see a healthy life. They don't see you neglecting your family, neglecting your spouse, neglecting your finances, neglecting your, whatever the case may be, while you're telling them to get it tightened up. Because that only will come off as hypocrisy. It'll only come off as inauthentic. And no matter what you say, you will not accomplish developing healthy leaders, because they're going to do more of what they see than they are what you say. So first and foremost, as with everything in leadership, you have to model it. You need to be healthy. So that means you need to work on time management. That means you need to work on your physical health, your spiritual health, your relational health, your financial health. All of these things you need to be working on. And you're not going to be perfect, because nobody's perfect. But you need to be somewhat of a picture of health so that they can know what the target is. Because remember, a lot of times when you say be healthy, what you mean healthy is not what they necessarily mean healthy. One of the places I struggle with this for myself is my physical health. I got to tell you, I'm an emotional eater. I'll just be honest about that. And I know some of you may be the same. A lot of people who are very fast living, moving, doing a lot of things, chasing a lot of things, working hard, loving life, dealing with stress and people and issues. We don't realize it sometimes, but we allow ourselves to become almost addicted to food. And it's interesting how when we eat emotionally, we don't normally eat foods that are good for us. We eat foods that are comfortable, that make us feel comfortable. They're like a warm blanket on a cold night. I mean, truthfully, that's the way it is. I'm just being honest. Now, I'm not incredibly obese, but I do allow myself to get overweight at times. I used to be an avid runner. I love to run. I've had problems with my knees and I'm having some physical issues there, but I'm working myself back into fixing that and not using that as an excuse anymore, because I've determined, just through some perspective of going through my father-in-law dying and just getting older myself, realizing you can't put things like this off. I don't know about you, but there are certain things in my life that the thing in my life that goes first when things get stressed and time gets short, one of the first thing that goes is my physical conditioning, like my workouts, eating right, taking the time to do that. And so it's important that you as a leader find where's that weakness at and go to work on it. Go to work on it, because it's important that you be healthy. Listen, you can't do what it is you're doing if you're not healthy. And I'm not just talking about physical health. I'm talking about spiritual health. I know a lot of guys that's the first struggle they have. Their spiritual life goes in the dumps when things get busy and get stressed. They stop praying. They stop studying the Word in terms of their own personal spiritual growth. They just now they get up and they speak good messages and they're great communicators, but it feels empty because there's really no spiritual depth behind it, because the communion with God is not there. And then it opens the door for, some temptation and things to happen, and you're just not spiritually strong. We all know how it works. Some of us have struggles with our financial health. We've overextended ourselves. We're in debt up to our ears, and if something were to happen, we know we're in trouble. And so what do? A lot of what you talk about, a lot of what you teach about, a lot of what you preach about is finance, 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 money, money, money. And it's not because you're trying to create an understanding or teaching for your congregation or for your business or whatever. It's because you're ate up with an unhealthy financial life. So we all know the risks of unhealthy life. But the bottom line is you can't develop healthy leaders if you're not healthy yourself. So one way to do it, number one, is if you're going to develop healthy leaders, you got to be healthy. Okay. Number two, if you're going to develop healthy leaders, you have to be intentional. Leadership itself doesn't happen accidentally, and it's really not a very spontaneous thing. It's something that you have to plan, you have to think about, you have to process, and you have to purposefully do, especially if you're trying to develop leaders who are healthy. You've got to think about your leaders. Where are they? What do they need to infuse their life with health? What are some ways you can do that? So you have to be intentional about it. So you need to take some time during your week, in your thinking time or strategy time or processing time, and you need to sit down and say, how can I help the leaders around me that I'm developing, whether it's people I'm mentoring or people I'm coaching or people on my staff or people that I'm friends with or people who are looking to me for leadership, the people of my congregation or my church or my business or my corporation, whatever the case may be. And you have to ask yourself, how can I intentionally deposit strong, healthy leadership mindset, strong, healthy leadership content into their life? I'm already living that way myself so that I can give them a model of that, but how can now I help them do that and achieve that? And whether it's in your evaluation process with your staff, or whether it's in your weekly meetings that you have teaching, talking about it, whether it's conversations over coffee, whatever it is, whatever strategy you want to employ, you're going to need to stop and think about it and really come up with that strategy and then implement it over time and then be extremely consistent with it. So it's very important. So first, model it. Second, be intentional about taking action to develop healthy leadership. Third is create a culture of healthy leadership. Now, what does that mean? That means that the systems, the norms, the attitudes, the values that you have as an organization all point to healthy leadership. And I'm going to talk, the fourth thing is going to be very important. And I'm going to just say it now and then I'll repeat it in a minute. But the fourth thing is, don't tolerate unhealthy leadership. So again, back to the culture. Number three, develop a healthy leadership culture. So everything in your organization should point to healthy leadership. So in other words, you're not saying to your team, hey, be good to your family, pay attention to your family, don't become a workaholic, make sure you're taking time off, and on your days off to be with your family, whatever the case may be. But then you as an organization start doing things that keep them from being able to do that. Now, I know that there are seasons and there are times, and everybody understands that. No one misunderstands that. Everyone understands that there are seasons and times in every organization that it's pedal to the metal. It's everybody, everybody on deck. It's all hands in. I get it, and everybody gets it. But the bottom line is, it's not always like that, and it shouldn't be. So if we're saying to our teams and our leaders that we're developing, hey, don't be a workaholic. Make sure you're paying attention to your family. Take care of your wife. Make sure you're at your kids' events. Make sure you're bringing them along with the vision and the understanding of our organization. Make sure they know we love them, all this kind of things. But then you create a culture, an atmosphere where it's impossible for them to do that. Well, you're breaking your own philosophy and ideology about having a healthy leadership culture. So I'll give you an example of what we do. I give 2 days off a week, Friday and Saturday. We take Friday and Saturday. And the reason I do that is because if someone wanted to go away for a weekend and they ask for a weekend off and we gave them that, then they could really leave like on Thursday night and have 3 days. The other thing is now we give Friday and Saturday. Now, that doesn't mean that if we have something on Saturday as a church, we expect everybody to be there, but that's rare. So usually they have a Friday off and a Saturday off. Now, here's why I do that. Some people say, wow, that's too much time to give off. But, here's why I do it. Because number one, I count Sunday as a work day. And if we have something on Sunday night, Sunday morning, it's a work day. If I need them to do something on Sunday, it's a work day. Their Sabbath, their time off, their time to rest is Friday, Saturday. Okay. So now a lot of times on that half day on Sunday, they don't have to work. A lot of times they get that time off as well. So it's just a rest time because sometimes they don't get the Saturday. You see how I'm going here. But the reason is we do 2 days is simply because you give somebody 1 day off and they go home and they're doing all their duties. They're taking care of their home chores and they really don't have time to refurbish or refresh themselves, anything like that. So we give them a day to get that taken care of and then a day where they can just go have fun. So that's one way we develop a healthy culture for people in terms, because we know we work hard. We know we're going to spend a lot of time. We know there's a lot of evenings involved. So we give them the time they need. And then, it's important for us to follow up with those that we're developing in leadership and say, hey, how's it going? Are you working when you go home, or are you putting your head down and really getting your work done when you're at work? So it's important that we ask those questions, we follow up and make sure that they know. So the last thing I want to talk about is the fourth thing is don't tolerate unhealthy culture. A lot of times our culture is developed not on what we want it to be, but on what we tolerate. We can say we want a culture that is excellent and organized and developed. But if we tolerate a lack of excellence and unorganized attitudes and unorganized behaviors, then that's what our culture will be. We will default to that. A while back, I just got sick and tired, to be honest, and it really wasn't anybody's fault. It was just a habit of everybody. I got sick and tired of opening every closet or every organizational space in our organization and finding just stuff disorganized, stuff thrown everywhere. And if you're a nonprofit organization and you have volunteers and serve team people working for you, especially if you're a church and people are giving towards you and they go in those closets and they see things just thrown around and not taken care of, it doesn't make them want to give. It doesn't seem like that's a good place to give. Why? Because you're not taking care of what you've been given. So we want to be excellent. We want to be organized. And also it helps us to be more efficient and more effective in the things that we're trying to accomplish. So we went through everybody. We took the whole team and we went through everything, and we decided what places were going to be storage for what things, and we labeled everything, and we got cabinets, and we organized, and we got everything straightened up. And if that ever, my wife and I or someone else on the team might go through, anybody really on the team might go through and say, hey, things are getting out of order, and we'll just say, you know what, we have a system that says go back and put it. We don't allow volunteers or serve team members to just put stuff anywhere. We say, hey, this is where that goes. And sometimes, just like everything, it'll get a little disheveled. We have to bring it back into order. But the bottom line is, if we tolerate that, that becomes our culture. So if you don't want to have an unhealthy leadership culture, then you cannot tolerate unhealthy leadership behavior. Now, that's not to say that you become this legalistic, heavy-handed, hard person. Nothing about that. But what it is you create systems that people, have to butt up against. And it may be hard for them at first, and it may be uncomfortable for them at first, and they may even get broken on it a couple of times. But you have to be relentless in what you will and will not tolerate when it comes to the culture you're trying to create. So those are 4 things that are very practical that I think can help you develop healthy leaders. Now, let me just say this. One last thing, I'll give you a little bonus thing, is you have to be practical with developing leaders. And part of developing leaders is taking people with you to do things you're doing when you're leading. Part of developing leaders is having conversations, teaching times, training times to develop leaders. A lot of it can be caught, but it also has to be taught. So make sure you're taking those times that are important times for you to speak into, for you to take people with you, for you to call out things, for you to investigate, go to conferences where there's healthy leadership being developed and grown, go to different seminars, listen to podcasts, avail yourself to the resources that are out there. Now, let me just finish with this. You literally have to practically keep your finger on the pulse of this, because you can very quickly, in the busyness and the ongoing movement of your organization, lose sight of developing healthy leaders. Now, here's how you know you're developing healthy leaders, and this is it. Here's how you know. They begin to develop healthy leaders themselves. When the leaders you're developing start developing other leaders, you know you've got a healthy leader. So, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. I want to encourage you, if you've got an area that needs to be shored up like I do with my physical health, and I'm on that road right now, I challenge you. Don't be a person who makes excuses. Just jump on it, get it done. Let's be that model for other people that we need to be. And I want to encourage you, listen, if Life and Leadership Podcast is helping you, please share it with someone else. And I'd love it if you subscribed and became a part of our leadership community. And you can go to YouTube. It's called Gadberry Leadership Coaching. And on our iTunes podcast, it is Life and Leadership with David Gadberry. And subscribe to that so it comes right to you and you can hear it every Thursday. And then just share it with people if it add value to you. My goal in life is that we add value to as many people as we can to help them reach the potential that resides on the inside of them. It really is the call that I believe I have, and I want to be able to help them do that. So help me help them, if you will. So thanks so much for being a part. And I want to encourage you, go out, add value to someone today. And I guarantee you this, the greater value will be added to you. God bless.